Nous saluons ainsi l'arrivée de son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée nationale, qui représente son Excellence, Monsieur le Président du Conseil.
We welcome the Speaker of the Parliament, who is stepping in for the President of the Council.
Lomé qui accueille la il est bienvenu. Mesdames et messieurs, nous vous prions de bien vouloir prendre place. La cérémonie va pouvoir bientôt commencer. Merci de votre aimable attention.
Un peuple qui ignore son histoire, ses origines et sa culture est comme un arbre sans racines.
L'histoire est la seule arme des peuples. Le problème du XXe siècle est celui de la discrimination raciale.
Nous voulions dire au monde que nous existons.
Chaque génération doit, dans une relative opacité, affronter sa mission, la remplir ou la trahir.
Notre indépendance n'a de sens que si nous restons maîtres de notre destin.
L'Afrique ne doit pas attendre que son destin lui soit dicté. Elle doit le choisir.
L'Afrique doit s'unir. L'unité ne nous rendra pas riches, mais elle rendra plus difficile pour quiconque de nous appauvrir.
La liberté ne s'octroie pas, elle se conquiert.
La lutte du peuple noir au Brésil fait partie inséparable du combat de tous les peuples d'Afrique.
Je suis fière d'avoir combattu.
L'avenir dépend des luttes d'aujourd'hui.
En me renversant, on n'a abattu que le tronc.
La dignité n'a pas de prix.
J'en avais assez de céder.
L'esclave, qui n'est pas capable d'assumer sa révolte, ne mérite pas que l'on s'apitoie sur son sort.
L'histoire dira que je n'ai jamais trahi mon peuple.
Un peuple debout est invincible.
Je ne suis plus acceptée là où il s'agit de rester silencieuse.
Ma bouche sera la bouche des malheurs qui n'ont point de bouche.
Par tous les moyens nécessaires.
Ne mentez pas, ne revendiquez pas de victoire facile.
Il n'y a pas de libération partielle.
La connaissance libère les peuples.
Une lutte qui n'éduque pas n'émancipe pas.
Émancipez-vous de l'esclavage mental. Seuls nous pouvons libérer nos esprits.
Écrire, c'est hurler sans bruit.
Tout ce à quoi on est confronté ne peut pas être changé. Mais rien ne peut être changé tant qu'on n'y est pas confronté.
Une injustice, où qu'elle se produise, est une menace pour la justice partout ailleurs.
Mon humanité est liée à la vôtre.
Lorsque les missionnaires sont arrivés en Afrique, ils avaient la Bible et nous avions la terre. Ils ont dit « Prions ». Nous avons fermé les yeux. Lorsque nous les avons rouverts, nous avions la Bible et eux avaient la terre.
Les arbres sont le manteau de la terre. Si on ne vous donne pas de place à table, apportez une chaise pliante.
On peut tuer un révolutionnaire, mais on ne peut pas tuer la révolution.
L'unité africaine est une question de vie ou de mort.
Combien d'autres devront mourir pour que cette guerre s'arrête?
Nous préférons mourir libres.
La liberté est incomplète sans les femmes. Si vos rêves ne vous effraient pas, c'est qu'ils ne sont pas assez grands.
Cela semble toujours impossible jusqu'à ce qu'on le fasse.
Tant que la philosophie qui considère une race comme supérieure et une autre comme inférieure ne sera pas définitivement discréditée et abandonnée, la guerre fera rage partout.
Le panafricanisme est la politique de la survie.
Je porte l'Afrique dans ma voix.
L'Afrique n'est pas une terre sans peuple. Ses enfants sont dispersés à travers le monde.
Africa Unite, que vous venez d'écouter par...
You've just listened to Africa Unite, sung by the choir of the University of Lomé. And following the slogans that you have just listened to, more than slogans, these are invitations by these men and women, leaving us the commitment of their supreme commitment, laying down their lives for for the Pan-Africanist cause, which has brought us together today in Lomé, capital of peace, in a spirit of tolerance, and following 5 days of work of the 9th Pan-African Congress, which Togo has hosted. A historical Congress from the standpoint of participants, their commitment, and important decisions that they've taken, which is a watershed in the construction of what we call a united Africa. Your Excellency, Speaker of the National Assembly, and of the Council, I welcome you to this closing ceremony. And before we take it further, I want us to salute the memory, a tribute of all these men and women taken away by slavery, families that have been decimated by slavery, all these men and women who are Afro-descendants who have come back to the African continent. And I would like to call upon you to observe 1 minute silence for all these men and women who have been victims. Please be upstanding. A minute's silence as tribute to all these men and women who lost their lives and were devastated.
Merci, nous vous prions de bien vouloir.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thème cher à
I like to recall that this is a theme that is dear to all Pan-Africanists, and for 30 years we've been working on this, and we've been working to have a day. And Charlotte, here you are at this 9th Pan-African Congress. We are getting to the end of this Congress, the 7th organized in Africa in 125 years. We go back over the celebration which has taken place here in Lomé, capital of peace, with all Afro-descendants of the world. Thank you for your commitment, and thank you for your presence at this historical event, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting will continue to inspire the future of our beautiful continent. And this beautiful closing ceremony, Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, will give the floor to one invited guest, Dr. Saver Christine of St. Lucia, representative of the diaspora and Afro-descendants. They came in their numbers from all over the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome her to make her closing remarks. Dr. Samara Josephine Marie Dessin of St. Lucia. Welcome once again. For 5 days they were here, they shared with us their knowledge, their culture, their traditions, but above all, their fraternity here in Lomé. The 9th Pan-African Congress, which reminds us of the love that united us on this continent, from which sometimes we've been separated, and for which we are taking resolute measures, as was passed on to us by the founding fathers of Pan-Africanism. We don't have the choice but to take up the mantle.
Thank you to all the sisterhood and the brotherhood.
Et à toutes les sœurs et frères du panafricanisme.
Thank the organizers for the great hospitality extended and for the opportunity to participate in the 9th Pan-African Congress in Lomé, Togo, in a year that marks the 125th year since the 1900 London Conference on Pan-Africanism, and in this significant year in which the African continent and global Africa articulates justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. This historic year also marks the commencement of the second decade for people of African descent and the 60th anniversary of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. I therefore believe that we have gathered here and on the eve of the 25th anniversary of the Durban Declaration, not just to recognize these occasions, but also to re-energize and effect a transformational vision that will break the back of indignity and disregard for Africans and people of African descent for the past, present, and the future. As the immediate past president of the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, a body established to contribute to the full political, economic, and social inclusion of people of African descent in the societies in which they live as equal citizens without discrimination of any kind, and contribute to ensuring equal enjoyment of all human rights. I remind you that during the second session of the forum held in New York in 2023, we dedicated a thematic discussion to Pan-Africanism for dignity, justice, and peace. The Permanent Forum will continue to emphasize that as Pan-Africanism addresses the historical injustices of colonialism, enslavement, apartheid, subjugation, and systemic and structural racism, its principles find resonance as we contribute to the elaboration of a United Nations Declaration on the promotion, protection, and full respect of the human rights of people of African descent. Let me just step away from my script right now to say that it is inconceivable that in this point in history that people of African descent and Africans still have to prove that they are humans. I think that it is time that all of us unite and make sure that we move the work of the Permanent Forum forward. I also want to ensure that as we address the legacies of these injustices, that we ensure that we seek guarantees to prevent future acts of racial discrimination, including reforms to laws, policies, and institutions. Let us prioritize the needs and perspectives of the victims of discrimination. Let us be deliberately inclusive through the involvement and participation of all communities. And let us design effective implementation strategies aimed at transformation of systems and structures that discriminate against us. I want us to always remember that it is the people who are at the heart of Pan-Africanism, not the governments. And so I urge all the people here to join together as we re-energize our movement. I look forward to the 10th Congress on Pan-Africanism. I remind you to say our names, and I thank you.
We thank you so much for sharing this inspiring speech with us. Dr. Sommer June Christine Marie de Sainte-Lucie, thank you for coming all the way from the diaspora to take part of this event with us.
Une série d'interventions.
A number of presentations, so we now continue with the speech of Mr.
Now, Mrs. Wanda Menezes, representative of Afro-Brazilians. Nous accueillons maintenant pour son intervention.
Let us welcome Vanda Menezes, who represents Afro-Brazilians.
Vous aurez bien compris que
you would have understood that all these persons have come with their commitment, their competence, their faith in the future of Africa through their participation in this 9th Pan-African Congress, historical Congress, through the participation of men and women from both sides of the Atlantic. They are Africans, they are Afro-descendants who have participated in this Congress that Togo, our country, is honored to host. A major continental rendezvous, and Togo is the 15th.
Vanda Menezes, representative of Afro-Brazilians. Je crois qu'on peut l'accueillir avec des applaudissements.
I believe we can welcome him with a round of applause to express our gratitude to him.
Bonjour. Good morning. Agradeço ao governo da República Togolesa, em especial ao ministro das Relações Exteriores, professor Robert Dussen, e ao diplomata Lucien.
I want to thank you all for your trust, your commitment that has made it possible for the civil society of Brazil to participate in the 9th Pan-African Congress. I would like to emphasize that the participation of Vânia Santana and Vânia dos Santos to the civil society of Brazil, representatives of the civil society Brazil. We come from a continental country and we represent all 5 regions of Brazil, and our diversity is represented by activists committed since the 60s and by the young generation that is carrying on this fight in Pan-African perspectives. In this delegation we have Eleonardo and Eli Santos from Juventude Valera, Marcos Palais Lopez, Flora Santana, Evelyn Meyer, Jonathan Silva. The Black Brazilian movement, which is the oldest social movement in Brazil, that was born in the 16th century with the Quilombo, where in the Alagoas state the first shout for liberty was heard. We must emphasize that Brazil is the biggest country, the country with the biggest number of Afro-descendants. We are 113 million and we represent the highest African population of the diaspora. Among these 113 million, about 1.3 live in the Quilombolas. We have about 300 indigenous group who speak 192 languages and are also committed in the same fight for racial equality. The intervention of the Black Brazilian movement has got the highest affirmative action in the world. The Black people are having more and more access to institutions, and I must say that as part of these leaps we have the creation of the Ministry of Racial Equality. In the same vein of our fight, we now focus on reparation policies that require a medium and long-term investment in the Black population that we represent. The magnitude of these investment require more than 3% of the GDP of the country. Over the past years, our GDP was among the 10 highest GDPs in the world. You know about the vulnerability of women and children in Brazil. At the beginning of this Congress, the President of the Council, His Excellency for Esosum Nasimbe, sorry if I misspelled the name, the exclusion of our country does not allow our women and children to speak another language. So we want a new African Union that will involve the diaspora into the affairs of the motherland. So it requires bringing all energies of the diaspora together, and then we reaffirm the commitment of the Black movement of Brazil in order to achieve this new Pan-African project. This movement had started more than 100 years ago, sorry, with names like Mavis Garvey, Fumulayo Kuti, Ruth Mombati, Maria Meba, Maris Conde, Abdias Nascimento Kwame Nkrumah, Ward Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Mariette Franco, Angela Davis, Bob Marley, Amilcar Cabral, and Franz Fanon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Toute notre gratitude à Madame Wanda Menezes, qui est la représentante des Afro-Brésiliens. Charlotte, il faudra que nous aussi on...
Charlotte, I think we also need to learn Portuguese, because if we want to speak to our brothers and sisters from Brazil, by the end of the meeting, we'll be able to speak a few words in Portuguese. Thankfully, you have a few words in Portuguese, and that will enable us to take Pan-Africanism a bit further during this 9th Pan-African Congress. Maybe to better learn Portuguese, we need to go to Brazil.
To Mr. João Jorge Santos Rodrigues, President of Palmares Foundation, representative of the Minister of Culture of Brazil. Please welcome Mr. João Jorge Santos Rodrigues.
Nous restons au Brésil pour accueillir le...
We are still in Brazil to welcome the next speaker representing the Honorable Minister of Culture of Brazil. This is Mr. Rodrigues. I believe I've been able to pronounce his name correctly, because it's now that I'm going to start learning Portuguese. So we warmly welcome the Honorable Representative of the Minister of Culture of Brazil with a round of applause during this closing ceremony of the 9th Pan-African Congress, a real historical Congress once again, which we are honored to have hosted. And you can see that the people of Togo are very happy to welcome you around Pan-Africanism, which has brought all of us together and brought African men and women together.
Bom dia a todos e todas. O presidente Lula, a ministra Margarete Menezes.
The President Lula, minister, have a responsibility for Afro-descendants. It's not enough to recognize the fact that we are a large Afro-descendant population. It's not enough to recognize that Pan-Africanist ideas is within us. We need to act. We need to act and develop the policies of our country. The Minister of Culture, the Minister of Racial Equality, and the government of Brazil have the responsibility of serving the people to extend the engagement and listen to the voice of this incredible movement, which started with the revolt in 1796, involving women who played a significant part. My Bernadette, who have been assassinated. We need to remember history to be able to make history. It is not possible to make history by cleaning or overlooking what needs to be listened to. We need to recall the presence of the Brazilian government and the civil society, which are bound by a visionary idea. So we are meeting in this Congress once again to talk about Afro-Brazilians in Portuguese, English, French, Spanish, and so on and so forth. Those who took the floor before us have proposed a representation of the African Union in the African diaspora, and in Brazil we will propose an agreement to resolve the issue of regional aviation. We're also proposing the creation of an African or Afro-Brazilian university, Afro-diasporan, Afro-descendant in the northeastern area of Brazil. We cannot solve all the problems, but our history, depending on the African continent, and our fight against oppression mandates us to fight. And the Brazilian government, civil society, we're here as a people. So we are the hope of a people, we are the soul of a people. And I thank the government of Togo, and the diplomat Lucien, the African Union, for inviting us to participate. We have started constructing the future, and we'll get to this future. We should put our heart in, our energy in. The Brazilian government, represented by President Lula, and with the Madame Margaret Lucy, a black woman, who are part of our cause, and originating from Bahia. We are together, and we'll be together tomorrow, and we'll always be together each time the fight for liberation calls upon us. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup aux représentants du ministre de la Culture du Brésil. Effectivement, il était question de culture hier ici au Palais des Congrès de Lomé, une journée consacrée donc à la culture d'ici et d'ailleurs. Et nous remercions également tous les participants qui ont bien voulu partager avec nous leurs connaissances en la matière. Nous avons été richement comblés de toutes les informations reçues sur la culture. Et même, il a été question de cheveux afro, comment on les entretient ici ou ailleurs. Merci à tous ceux qui étaient avec nous donc durant cette journée consacrée à la culture africaine, à la culture des afro-descendants. Il faut le rappeler, le Brésil est représenté en nombre à ce 9e congrès panafricain, mais on n'a pas que le Brésil dans la salle, on a également le Cuba, dont on a été honoré de la présence à la cérémonie d'ouverture de Madame la vice-présidente du Cuba, pays invité d'honneur à cette 9e édition du Congrès, Colombie, pardon. Merci beaucoup, c'était plutôt la Colombie, des pays voisins, hein, mais il faut le préciser. Madame la vice-présidente de la Colombie était avec nous à la cérémonie d'ouverture. Patrick.
Alors vous aurez bien compris que ce 9e congrès aura rassemblé des amoureux de l'Afrique qui vivent en Afrique ou des afro-descendants d'une façon générale. Nous poursuivons avec la série des intervenants et nous voudrions inviter maintenant Dr. Reynolds Barbara Gwinnett. She is Guyanese. She is a United Nations Working Group on People of African Descent, representative of the Congrès, c'est-à-dire qu'au nom de tous les congrès.
That is on behalf of the entire Congress, she's going to extend the gratitude of their descendants, Afro-descendants, and let us welcome her with a round of applause, who is going to present the gratitude of delegates who participated in the 9th African Congress in Lomé for a cause that touches all Africans and Afro-descendants. And as one speaker said a while ago, it's not a political issue, it's an individual issue, it's an issue for all communities and all our citizens who are touched by this cause. And as the founding father said, we are together to be able to foot forward.
Your Excellency, the President of the National Assembly of Togo, representing His Excellency, the President of the National Council, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Regional Integration and Togolese abroad, Excellencies, fellow delegates, sisters and brothers. The 9th Pan-African Congress has proved untrue that famous line Shakespeare wrote in The Merchant of Venice, when he said, "All things that are with more spirit chased than enjoyed." This Congress was well worth the wait. And as a person of African descent, and as a member and former chair of the UN Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent, I wish to assure you, Excellencies, that this was a transformative experience for delegates. We offer our sincere appreciation with the hope that it was as rewarding for those who worked unstintingly to make it a reality, those who received us on arrival and who will see us off over the weekend, those who helped us find our way in Lomé, and those who made our accommodation and meals pleasant, and finally, those who helped keep us safe. Chinua Achebe's African Children in many ways typifies how we got here, why we are here, and where we must go from here. Things Fall Apart can well describe 5 centuries of enslavement, colonization, diverse forms of segregation, and the deliberate underdevelopment that the celebrated Eric Williams analyzed in Capitalism and Slavery, and Walter Rodney, yes, my countryman, traced in excruciating detail in how Europe underdeveloped Africa. Arrow of God and No Longer at Ease foreshadowed so many of the contradictions and conundrums, challenges and concerns that still face Africans and people of African descent. Our discussions, debate, and even a few arguments this week confirm that there are still tensions, uncertainties, and divisions among us that we must address if we are to renew Pan-Africanism. Excellencies, in the first half of the 20th century, global Africa's leaders, those giants whose names we recited this week, were consumed by the quest for self-determination and independence from European powers. When we succeeded, when they succeeded, we went our separate ways as we struggled for nationhood, community, and ultimately identity, forgetting that our history and therefore our destiny are intertwined. In the first half of this 21st century, reparatory justice is the same unifying goal. The unfinished work of racial justice and gender equality, and the emerging challenges of environmental justice and digital justice all hinge on righting the historical wrongs of enslavement, segregation, and underdevelopment. In December 2024, at the UN headquarters in New York, my working group focused on 8 pillars of reparatory justice in our 37th session: representation, recognition, acknowledgement, and apology, repair of our ways of being, living, knowing, and living together, reimagining and reshaping language and education, spaces and places, reparations, repatriation, and the return of artifacts and our assets, reform of institutions, laws, policies, and structures that would assure us of non-repetition, reparatory justice for Haiti, which we cannot leave behind, and finally, remembering Durban and the centrality of the Durban Declaration of Program of Action. Like we did this week, we examined the political, legal, economic, social, and cultural underpinnings and dimensions of reparatory justice, and concluded, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we did this week, that we shall have to pursue multiple pathways to achieve this single goal given our diverse contexts and experiences. The ideas, the aspirations, the experiences and achievements shared this week have helped me amplify our conclusions and recommendations, and I commend our report to everyone present. As momentum increases across the globe, the time to act is now. Martin Carter, the renowned poet, yes, and my countryman, said it well. This I have learned, today a speck, tomorrow a hero, hero or monster, you are consumed. Like a jig shakes the loom, like a web is spun, the pattern, all are involved, all are consumed. Over the last decade, we've seen increasing reversals in the gains made in basic human rights and fundamental freedoms of the 20th century, leaving us a very narrow opportunity for global Africa to pull together. President Barack Obama said, yes, we can. Today, we affirm, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we must, we shall. On behalf of the delegates of this 9th Pan-African Congress, I extend our sincere appreciation to the government and people of Togo for organizing and hosting this Congress, and assure the government and people of Togo that we are all committed to moving this agenda forward. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. She is from Guyana, Dr. Reynolds Barbara Winners.
United Nations Working Group of People of African Descent, representative of the Congress. Patrick de la Guyane, nous partons pour l'Éthiopie.
From Guyana, we go to Ethiopia. But let me also say that Dr. Reynolds said it is time to act. It is time to act, as some delegates have said. Words are worthy. Words mean a lot only when we act. We'll make history by commitment to the cause of our movement.
Fin du 19e siècle. Après la conférence de Berlin, l'Italie, assoiffée de colonies, convoite le dernier empire libre d'Afrique, l'Éthiopie. En 1889, Ménélique II signe le traité de Wuchal. Mais l'Italie y insère une clause perfide. L'article 17 est délibérément falsifié dans la version italienne. La révélation est brutale. La traduction italienne transforme l'Éthiopie en un protectorat, la privant de sa souveraineté. L'empereur Ménélique II et l'impératrice Taïtu Bétule découvrent la trahison. Face à l'ultimatum de Rome, qui exige la soumission totale, Ménélique II refuse. Il déchire publiquement le traité, choisissant l'honneur de sa nation plutôt que la servitude. Les tambours de guerre résonnent alors dans tout l'Empire. Une armée impressionnante de 100 000 hommes, unis et fidèles à son empereur, se met en marche vers le nord pour défendre sa liberté. Mars 1896. Le général italien Baratieri ordonne l'attaque. Mais son avant-garde, menée par le général Alberton, s'égare dans l'obscurité des hauts plateaux éthiopiens. À l'aube, le piège se referme brutalement. Surgissant de toutes les crêtes surplombant la cuvette d'Adoua, des dizaines de milliers de guerriers éthiopiens déferlent sur les colonnes italiennes désorganisées. La charge royale est lancée. L'empereur Ménélique II, coiffé de sa couronne de guerre, et l'impératrice Taïtu Bétul en personne galvanisent leurs troupes, menant l'assaut décisif depuis le front. La puissance de feu italienne est rapidement submergée et les bataillons sont encerclés un par un. Le général Baratieri ordonne la retraite, qui se transforme en déroute totale. L'humiliation coloniale est consommée. Adoua est une victoire éclatante et historique. Ménélique II force l'Italie à signer le traité d'Addis Abeba, reconnaissant la pleine souveraineté et l'indépendance de l'Éthiopie. Un triomphe retentissant pour l'Afrique.
Un bel hommage rendu donc à cette
homage to this great figure, Menelik II, a great figure of Pan-Africanism. And going towards Ethiopia, we can have a thought for the headquarters of African Unity. African Unity, which became the headquarters of the African Union in Addis Abeba, which we are now celebrating in the hymn that we are now listening to.
l'Union africaine.
African Union, Pan-African Organization, co-organizers of this 9th Pan-African Congress together with Togo, and for 5 days together here, we have created a space of unity, reflection, and traction for our continent, and which will hold us together till the next Congress, once again on African soil. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to invite Mr. Amal Joali, Ambassador and Representative of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Mr. Amal Joyi. Please welcome him on the podium for his speech by the representative of the African Union Commission, which is also co-organizing the 9th Pan-African Congress with Togo. If you have just joined us, there is a closing ceremony of the 9th Pan-African Congress, and we'll now listen to the speech by Mr. Ama Anjoali, Ambassador, who will make a speech by the co-organizers of this 9th Pan-African Congress.
Ambassador, for your speech, please.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président.
Your Excellency, Speaker of the National Assembly, Professor Doucet, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations.
Of the 9th Pan-African Congress, to recognize that there are multi-dimensions of success of this Congress. This conference was and is multi-stakeholder. We have heard youth, we have heard women, we have heard civil society, scholars, academics, media, and even I was in my car coming to this Congress, and I asked a lady who we shared the car with, so who do you represent, which institution? She said, I represent myself. So even individuals are part of this group, and we're very proud of that. So this Congress, 9th Congress, is multi-stakeholder, but it was also multi-continental. African diaspora spans across all continents. The Americas, South, Central, and North, Europe, Asia, and everywhere, Oceania, and everywhere where there is an African diaspora of African descent who feels belonging to the continent and willing to contribute is for the African Union, part of the dear African diaspora. But this Congress was also multi-sectoral, multi-faceted. We heard on the economic contribution of African diaspora, we heard on the social, historical, intellectual, political, diplomatic, and this is another source of richness of Africa and its diaspora. This conference also spans and introduces a multi-temporal synchronization. What do we mean by this? We have the decade of African roots and diaspora, which is led by Professor Doucet through the high-level committee, 2131. We also, as we heard Ambassador June Sumer and the other UN representatives, we have the UN Decade of People of African Descent, which has been renewed to a second decade. And then we also have heard, I think from the representative of the African Union, that the African Union will transform the theme of the year onto the theme of the decade, 2026 to 2035. So we have here a multi-temporal synchronization, and I think that our presence in this Congress has really helped us to synchronize those temporal decades where we promote Africa and its global history. The follow-up to this Congress is going to also be multi-layered. There will be the African level, the African intergovernmental level, whereby the first milestone and step that we will embark onto are the preparations for the African Union Summit to be held in Addis Ababa in February. In fact, yesterday or the day before yesterday, I was quite engaged into preparing for the documents to be presented there. But we also have the continuing high-level committee on African diasporas and African roots, once again led by Togo, with representation of the 5 African Union regions through the ministers that are there. So we have this intergovernmental African level. But we also have the follow-up at the level of what we now have established well, global Africa. Africa that is the continent, the motherland, and Africa that is people abroad. And we have mentioned a number of initiatives that took place, such as the second Africa CARICOM Summit that took place September 7th in Addis Ababa, and the first ministerial with the CELAC in New York in September. So there's this African intergovernmental track, and there is this global Africa track. But also there is a multilateral and a plurilateral track of suivi, or follow-up. And I mentioned in particular that the results of this conference and the ideas and rich deliberations that have taken place will guide us in many of our partnerships that we have already started to include. So I would like to recall that in the 7th African Union European Union Summit that took place in Luanda, Angola, from 24th to 26th of November, just less than a month ago. For the first time ever, there's recognition of the profound regret to what Africans have gone through, to the transatlantic slave trade, through colonialism and through apartheid. This recognition is a solid base for what is to follow, and these deliberations of this conference are another source of input that we can inject in there. And then, of course, there is the global house that groups us all, the United Nations, and we have heard from the members of the Permanent Forum of the People of African Descent, the UN, and the UN group of experts. And once again, there will be the stakeholder follow-up. I would like to end up by a conviction that we have at the Citizen and Diaspora Directorate of the African Union Commission, representing the Commission in general, that Africa is a continent, that's for sure. And in our belonging to that continent, let's make it peaceful, let's make it prosperous, let's make it integrated, let's make it influential. That's Agenda 2063 mottos. But Africa is not only a continent. Africa is an idea. So let's make that idea versatile in our minds. Let's make that idea alive in our hearts. Thank you.
Merci voilà.
Thank you, His Excellency, the Ambassador representing the African Union. We extend our gratitude to you, the gratitude of Togo, that you are honored by this historical Congress, the 9th Pan-African Congress. Now, I would like to invite you to watch this on the screen.
Le Togo tout entier vous dit.
The entire Togo would like to say thank you to you, and through a voice which is more authorized than mine, and that will be done at the right time. So we proceed. We go to a neighboring country, but before then, allow us to recognize the presence of a member of Parliament of Guyana, Honorable Freeman, who honored us by being with us this morning during the closing ceremony of the 9th Pan-African Congress, the 4th one on the African continent. And we go to Niamey to meet an elected member of Parliament, Mr. Abdurrahman, for his comment during this closing ceremony of the 9th Pan-African Congress. So, a round of applause for the Honorable Member of Parliament from Niger. First of all, I'd like to extend our African fraternal and revolutionary greetings of my President of the Republic of Niger, General Abdurrahman Chani. Your Excellency, Speaker of the National Assembly representing the President of the Council, Mr. Fonya Singwe, ladies and gentlemen of national institutions, ladies and gentlemen of the government, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, heads of diplomatic institutions representing diplomatic institutions accredited to the Republic of Togo, honorable traditional chiefs, guardians of our culture and identity, distinguished invited guests, and our brothers and sisters from outside Africa. It's an honor for me and a privilege for me to be here in Lomé, the capital of Togo, for this 9th Pan-African Congress. I like to recognize the vigor, the vision, and the hospitality with which Togo hosted this historic Congress. You made this Congress not only into a reflection, a space for reflection, but a real sanctuary for the African dignity. Looking at this Congress and this Palais de Congrès, magnificent Palais de Congrès, I feel the presence of our ancestors. And they are looking at, they are observing us. And I know they are proud of what they are seeing. Proud to see their sons and daughters dispersed by history to come back to the motherland, Africa. Proud to participate at this time towards their origin, where Afro descendants are turning back to their motherland. They are proud to see that in spite of centuries of dispersion, we have gathered here to continue with the fight, the unity, sovereignty, and African renaissance. Cheikh Anta Diop, in his book La Pensée est claire, reminded us the following: there's no salvation outside the fight to talk about African unity. Today, the Confederation of Sahelian States, AES, has given the evidence. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger have decided to take up what some people have not dreamt about: a common political unity, collective sovereignty, a confederate African architecture built by us and for us, with a united military force, with a same one passport, a confederal government, and an investment bank to take our development forward. It is important to recall that President Kwame Nkrumah said Africa has to unite. Yes, Africa must unite or perish. And this Wednesday, 10th December, in this very hall, Sammy Nkrumah, his daughter, our comrade, reminded us of the visionary force of the father and the urgency of his message. Today, the Confederation of Sahelian States is following this line: build a political unity which is sustainable for peace. But this march towards freedom was not without pains. After the revolution of 26 June 2023, when President took over, we went through economic sanctions, closure of all the boundaries, Nigeria cutting off electricity, lack of food, a clear desire to destroy decimate a whole people and reduce our dignity to silence. But a people that have chosen dignity will not back down. We resisted and we move forward. And it is through those difficulties, the darkness, that there was a star appeared. Togo. Because we need to remember that Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali are landlocked countries. Yes, the Confederation of Sahelian States, AES, is a landlocked country. and through the Pan-Africanist of vision of President Faure Gnassingbé, through his commitment, through the commitment of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Togo, Professor Robert Doucet, Niger, and the entire AES found a strategic way and a support, firm support. This gesture was not diplomatic, it was fraternal. It was not for the circumstances, it was historical, it was not symbolic, it was essential. No Malian, no Burkinabe, no Nigerian cannot and should not forget the courageous, firm support of Togo when our country was unjustly being harassed by ECOWAS. This attitude of African loyalty will be etched in our history as fraternity between two brotherly countries. We are deeply gratified. That is the real Pan-Africanism. That is fraternity in action, solidarity in action, loyalty between the two, between us. Your Excellency, Speaker of the National Assembly, Representative President of the Council, invited guests, dear Pan-Africanists, allow me again to recall a political truth, the first official trip of our President General Chani when he took over July 2023 was Mali, Burkina Faso, and Togo. And the only country outside the AES, the only country outside the AES that honored him. So we need to say thank you. We need to show our recognition towards this land that did not hesitate to extend its hand to us when many countries turned their backs on us. Today, thousands of Africans, Afro-descendants, Caribbeans, Latin America, Europe, Asia are observing us with hope. They see in AES as the reigniting of the African conscience, an Africa that is not afraid, and which taking in its hand its destiny. It is through the resilience of the people of AES and the friendship of countries like Togo extending its hand to her. Your Excellency, Speaker of the National Assembly, allow me to salute the leadership of the President of the Council, President Faure Gnassingbé, but also I want to salute his vision for the stability of our sub-region. Invited guests, dear Pan-Africanists, this 9th Congress is not just a meeting, it's a founding act, a historic threshold, a commitment for an Africa that has decided to move on. Before I conclude, I'd like to thank the government of the Republic of Togo for this invitation, the fraternal hospitality, and the organization of this Congress led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Professor Robert Doucet. I also want to commend all those who contributed for the success of this event, the quality of working committee, the plenaries, with very high-level discussions. And let me conclude with the conviction by saying the following, that our unity is our weapon. Our sovereignty should become our heritage, and our solidarity should be the pillar of the great Africa to come. Long live Togo, long live the Confederation of Sahelian States, long live African unity, long live Pan-Africanism, long live Africa on its feet. God bless you. I thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Pan-Africanism as a fight for African dignity. Mr. Abdurrahman Umaru, former MP at the National Assembly Niger, former candidate to elect presidential elections in 2020. The AES has participated fully in this 9th Pan-African Congress in Lomé through the presence of 3 ministers of the 3 members, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, alongside their brother from Togo, Professor Robert Doucier. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to give an applause to him in this exemplary unity. Thank you, Charlotte. I know an article that says that the first salary of an artist is the applause. So a Pan-Africanist is also rewarded by an applause. As Mr. Umaru was saying, we need to have a thought for our ancestors who did what they needed to do. Have a thought for these great men.
Souffle. Ceux qui sont morts ne sont jamais partis. Ils sont dans l'ombre qui s'éclaire, ils sont dans l'ombre qui s'épaissit. Les morts ne sont pas sous la terre. Ils sont dans l'arbre qui frémit, ils sont dans le bois qui gémit. Ils sont dans l'eau qui coule, ils sont dans l'eau qui dort. Ils sont dans la case, ils sont dans la foule. Les morts ne sont pas morts. Écoute plus souvent les choses que les êtres. La voix du feu s'entend. Entends la voix de l'eau. Écoute dans le vent. Le buisson en sanglots. C'est le souffle des ancêtres. Il redit chaque jour le pacte, le grand pacte qui lie à la loi notre sort, aux actes des souffles plus forts, le sort de nos morts qui ne sont pas morts. Birago Diop, L'heure et lueur, 1960. Merci.
Hommage, comme nous le disions, à...
This is a tribute to a great man, Birago Diop, that we just heard, presented by the voice of this young lady, Akapovi, that I want us to salute once again through our ovation on a second 12th December. He was born on the 12th of December. It was well chosen, the date. There are so many like him, these eminent servant of our country, who is here to represent His Excellency, the President of the Council. We will invite him to come and receive from the hands of one of the representatives of the delegate. We want to ask His Excellency, the Speaker of the National Assembly, representing the President of the Council, to come and receive officially from the hands of the representative of the delegates the conclusions of the 9th Pan-African Congress. 5 days of deliberations in which ideas were conflicted and confronted. That is the lively spirit of Africans, to share one's thoughts to generations of today. We welcome His Excellency, the Speaker of the National Assembly, who will come and receive from the hands of the representative of the delegate the conclusions of these 9th Pan-African Congress. Let us welcome him, Komiselam Klasu, Speaker of the National Assembly, representing the President of the Council, who is receiving the conclusions of the deliberations. This is a historical moment that we are experiencing here at the Palais Congrès in Lomé. Lomé, who is hosting the 4th Pan-African Congress held on the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, we will ask you to come and to kindly follow this video before we give the floor to the Speaker of the National Assembly of Togo. Our destiny is getting clearer. We're proud to welcome here our brothers and sisters coming from the continent of diaspora to talk with us for 5 days to speak the same language, the language of Pan-Africanism that gathers here in Lomé, a land of hospitality, dialogue, and unity. Gather to build and to grow together the African Union that bear with Togo. This reminds us something essential, that is, it's only when we gather, we put together all the children of Africa across the world, that we will succeed building an Africa that is worthy, dignified, and prosperous. A strong Africa is an Africa that believes in what it knows, in what she can do, and what she is. We don't need to be saved as Africans. We need to be heard, and mostly, we must be united. Let Lomé become this week the venue where Africa is united in action. A place where our voices will come together, where our ideas will rise, and where our destiny will be clarified. Pan-Africanism is a movement that has been deeply pluralized in its historical movement and in its current expression, which is the feature of its reality, its ambition, and its basic causes. Freedom for all means universal dignity to everybody, justice, and liberation from neocolonialism and of racism in all countries.
Congress is therefore a timely opportunity to reiterate that genuine reparatory justice must encompass the implementation of the common African position as contained in the Isilwini Consensus and the CERT Declaration for at least two permanent seats with all the prerogatives on privileges, including the veto if it still exists.
Cada vez que piso un país africano me siento muy honrada. Siento que nuestras familias rotas por el colonialismo, por la esclavitud, se empiezan a reconectar.
Pan-Africanism is no longer a dream to admire. Chers Africains, chers Afro-descendants, l'heure n'est plus au constat, ni aux déclarations d'intention. Elle est à la co-construction. Je parle de millions d'hommes arrachés à leur Dieu, à leur vie, à la danse.
Notre développement viendra d'abord de nous-mêmes. Dans le champ culturel et touristique, cela se traduit par une exigence.
Merci pour ces best-of. Nous demandons l'aimable autorité.
Thank you. With the permission of the speaker, we will listen to Madame Melina, who has a message for the speaker. Your Excellency, Speaker of the National Assembly of Togo, Minister Duse, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. We, representative of the African states, of nations that hold Afro-descendant nation organizations and association of the African diaspora of America, Europe, and Asia, regional institutions of the civil society, women and youth, of the academic world, and of international organization gathered in Lomé from the 8th to the 12th of December 2025 as part of the 9th Pan-African Congress under the topic, the renewal of Pan-Africanism and role of Africa in the reform of multilateral institutions, mobilizing resources to be reinvented for action. We recall the historical and normative foundation of Pan-Africanism movement that carries dignity and justice for people of African descent and Africans, and its determinant role against colonialism, current fight for the reform of international system, the restitution of cultural objects and reparatory justice, encouraged by the renewed vitality of Pan-Africanism in the 21st century, and carried by the political elite, people of various social professional layers. Recall that the architecture of international institutions that result from the Second World War continue to uphold rapports of oppression and dominance to the detriment of African countries. We reaffirm the imperative need of a world that is more just, representative, and inclusive to represent people, social justice, equity, and shared prosperity, having in mind the Agenda 2063 of African Union as a framework for an integrated, prosperous and Pacific Africa based on prosperity, good governance, valorization of indigenous values, and the promotion of women. We recall the decisions, the pertinent decisions of the African Union, especially creating the 2026-2031 decade of the African diasporas. The decision that gave to Togo the planning of the 9th Pan-African Congress, proposing 2025 as he couldn't hold in 2024. The topic of African Union is dedicated to reparatory justice, that is justice for Africans and people of African descent, for reparations, conscious that Africa must take up the challenges of the 21st century, need the support of African children whose role is paramount in the fight for respect for auto-centered development and the transformation of international system. We emphasize that the reform of international institutions require the establishment of a common Pan-African front that bring together African Union, the Caribbean communities, representatives of the people of the world. We acknowledge the spirit of initiative of the United Nations in favor of African people, the decade of people of African descent, 2025, 2015, 2025, 2025, 2034, the consolidation of human rights, economic and political rights of Africans. We note with satisfaction the holding of the 9th of the pre-Congress of the 9th Pan-African Congress in the six regions of the African Union. The Congress held 4th and 5th 2023 in South Africa on the topic of Pan-Africanism, science, knowledge and technology. In Mali on the topic Afro-descendant diaspora and development. The 18th of April in Morocco on the topic Pan-Africanism and migration. 24th May 2024 in Congo on the topic Pan-Africanism, economic Pan-Africanism and African emergence. The 6th July 2024 in Tanzania on the topic Africanophony, culture, education and Pan-African identity. And finally, from 29 to 31st August in Bahia on a topic Pan-Africanism, memory and reconstruction, concerned by the persistent effect of colonial heritage, especially the external experiences, structural inequalities, as well as racial and systemic discrimination, including in digital and algorithmic circles. We underline the need to restore African diaspora as part of the Zilwani Declaration affirming the right of the continent to be equitably represented in decision-making international institutions. We reaffirm the major role of women, the youth, academics, social movement, African cultures, the Ubuntu philosophy, and other indigenous thought systems in a Pan-African that is renewed and that is emancipatory. I'm going to make it shorter. I'll make it shorter by saying that in the 40th position, we are inviting African countries and countries hosting communities and people of African descent to include the recommendation of the 9th Pan-African Congress in their national, regional, and continental policies. Thank you very much. Our gratitude to the Speaker of the National Assembly. We are sort of abusing his time. We would give him the floor for his remark. We want to express our gratitude to the Speaker, who is representing the President of the Council. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, heads of the institution of the Republic, honorable MPs and Senate members, ambassadors, heads of diplomatic and consular missions, representatives of international organizations, Ambassador Amr Al-Zawahiri representing the African Union, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of associations and communities of African descent and of the diaspora, representative of the Minister of Culture of Brazil, on top officers of the Armed Forces of Togo, Madame representative of Afro-descendants, Madame the representative of Afro-Brazilians, venerable traditional chiefs, custodians of our traditions, ladies and gentlemen. The 9th Pan-African Congress, held in Lomé from the 8th to the 12th December 2025, has gathered enlightened spirits from our continent and from everywhere. On behalf of His Excellency, Mr. Four Esosimna Nyashimbe, President of the Council, that I am honored to represent, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for your commitment, delegates, experts, and participants. Your precious contributions have been the cornerstone of the success of this major encounter. The end of the deliberations is not just an end, it is also a new beginning. We are leaving Lomé with a clear vision of the path to follow for a reinvented Africa that is proud and respected. Let us not be too modest in our triumph. The successful organization of the 9th Congress is the result of our unity, our courage, and our determination. Yes, it is together we dreamt it, and we did it together, and together we succeeded. More than a decade after the 8th edition, we have finally succeeded in revisiting our connection and our belonging to our beloved Africa, rediscovering our roots and finding solutions to the structural problems that undermine our development. During 5 days of intense deliberations, you designed, analyzed, proposed, amended, and innovated. 5 days, and during these 5 days, your minds came together to chart the course for a new Africa, an Africa that is proud of its identity, an Africa that is strong by its will, an Africa that is determined to shape and take its rightful place in global governance. Discussions in various commissions and panels were not complacent. They were lively, intense, passionate, and committed, demonstrating your determination to mark this 9th Congress with the seal of action and African revival. Ladies and gentlemen, what you achieved here in Lomé goes beyond the walls of this convention center. It is the foundation of a continent that is asserting itself inspiring and shining brightly. With this Congress, the Africa that we dream of is no longer a faraway promise. It is marching forward, ready to become an essential geopolitical and respected cultural center. It is based on these that His Excellency, Mr. For Esosimnam Nasimbe, enlightened us during his opening speech. He said, "No power has been asserted allowing other people tell their stories. For centuries, the image of our continent has been drafted outside the continent. It has been distorted, stereotyped, instrumentalized. We can no longer accept that our success be invisible, our talent ignored, and our culture reduced to cliches. To go further, this Congress must assert a simple truth. Africa no longer will be a spectator. Divided, she will be vulnerable. United, she will be strong." End of quote. Let us not be modest. The remarkable organization of this Congress is the expression of our unity, of our courage unshaken, and our determination without wavering. We dreamed together, we did it together, and together we triumph, and together today we are receiving the trophies of this success. After the 8th, we finally were able to assert our link and our belonging to Africa and to rediscover our roots. I congratulate all of you for this exceptional achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, ministers, distinguished delegates, and participants, ladies and gentlemen, it has been said at the opening of this Congress, and I want to reiterate, the organizing by this 9th Congress by Togo is not accidental. It is not a simple gathering of soft power. It is a well-crafted planning for long days that falls under the 2021-2031 decade for African roots and African diaspora, and Togo was the initiator of this vision. For 10 days, we were all expected to promote African identity and to create inclusion bridges and of solidarity between Africa and her diaspora, including Afro-descendants. It is a challenge of consistency and coherence in activities, both individually and collective. Thus, the 9th Pan-African Congress that is coming to its conclusion today is not an end. It represents a decisive step in the chain of action and structuring action as part of the decade dedicated to action on behalf of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, the strong desire of the President of the Council is that the good resolutions in the final resolution will be translated into concrete achievement starting from today, with the full and inclusive participation of all Africans, including diasporas and all Afro-descendants. I particularly note with optimism the diagnosis that was being made of the operation of multilateral institutions backed by concrete proposition on how to reform this institution for a just and equitable world governance, and also the thoughts on how the continent has to be in charge of its economy is supported by clear suggestions with the desire to redesign economic path for the continent. Once again, I am grateful to you for having drafted the orientation on matters of reparation and the restitution of cultural objects. Your recommendations, added to the previously collected as part of other fora and meetings, are comforting in what we need to do in a responsible manner, in an urgent manner, and also in the short term. This Congress was a space of inclusion for African youth, and where the Pan-Africanism has also been female by awarding a deserved place to women, African women and Afro-descendant women. Distinguished participants and delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot conclude the proceedings of this Congress without expressing my sincere thanks to the organizers, and in particular the African Union Commission, the national organizing committees, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and his entire team, to various delegations and all stakeholders, namely the speakers, panelists, and above all, you, dear participants, for your dedication to attend this gathering with diligence. It's been a great honor for Togo to hold this 9th Pan-African Congress, and this historic moment strengthened Pan-Africanism. We form the hope that Lomé, the capital of peace, of mediation and dialogue and tolerance, serves as a link between the Pan-Africanist spirit of our predecessors and the renewal desired by current generations. Before I let you go, clad with your mantle of committed Pan-Africanists for other challenges and other adventures, Togo offers you a relaxing break, notably through the sightseeing of this afternoon and the Pan-African concert of Togo that will be holding in this same hall. Ladies and gentlemen, delegates to the Congress, when you remember Lomé, remember the exhortation from the President of the Council. I quote him, "An Africa that masters its tale masters its future." It is an Africa that inspires, that activates, that invests, and that influences. On this note, and on behalf of His Excellency, for Esozimna Nyasimbe, President of the Council, I officially declare close the official proceedings of the 9th Pan-African Congress.
Culture
Le Togo qui vous dit infiniment merci et nous qui disons infiniment merci à son Excellence, Monsieur.
Togo is saying thank you to you and thank you to the President, to the Speaker of the Parliament for having delivered the message of His Excellency, the President of the Council. You have understood in his remark that he is inviting you to relax, go around and visit Lomé, and then come back in the evening for the concert. We have quite a number. We're going to start with a King Mass, the package. We have artists coming from neighboring countries. There will be a concert. We meet here at 7 at the same place for the Pan-African Congress, Pan-African concert to conclude. Thank you for having taken part in this closing ceremony and for having taken part in this 9th Pan-African Congress to which you give life. Thank you to all that have been working behind the scene. Thank you. I want to say thank you to Claudicia. Thank you for your various contributions. We thank you. We thank all the delegations that came from here and from elsewhere. Thank you for having been there. Thank you for the friendship, the unity, and let these words remain in our hearts forever. Of course, let us master our tale to master our future. I wish you all a safe trip back home.